Hello and welcome to Scream Reviews, where starting the intro is much more difficult than killing Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, this is actually the 34th time we've started this intro.
It truly is. It's painful.
Yeah, we did a review on The Final Girls about 30 minutes ago, and we've listened to it, and
it sucked.
It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't quite energetic enough. So
we're going to bring the energy this time, kids.
Oh boy, we are. Okay, so Final Girls. What do you think of the movie?
So, overall, I thought it was a decent movie.
Okay.
I thought it had some good humor, some very talented cast.
Yeah.
But it was very underutilized, and I think it could have been much better than it was.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. So mostly just in terms of the cast, I thought people like Adam Devine and Thomas Middleditch were... Oh, and also Alia Shawkat, I forgot she was in the movie.
Yes.
I thought that they were very underutilized. Both Thomas Middleditch and Adam Devine were like some of the first people to get killed off.
Absolutely. And
I mean, maybe that's part...
What the hell?
I mean, maybe it was because they were working on their shows. And I know... Because they're both getting a lot of work nowadays.
Yeah.
So maybe that was it, but I don't know. I felt like not only the cast was underutilized, but the concept was underutilized.
Honestly, I very much agree.
Yeah.
It was a genre, the 80s genre of horror, a genre that is very outrageous and over the top. This movie was very tame.
Yeah, I mean, the rating did limit it a lot, just in terms of the comedy, because I think it could have gone dirtier, because...
The comedy could have gone dirtier, the deaths could have gone bloodier. I mean, they could have used so much red paint, but instead they went a bit more brutal and realistic.
Yeah, kind of like, if they went more like Edgar Wright, kind of Hot Fuzz type of violence, like, that would have been interesting. I do think that the comedy, I mean, like, I could care one way or another whether there's violence in the movie, like
violence
that's too
is important
extreme
to me in a movie.
I know, but like it's supposed to be a comedy movie, but the thing is that the comedy, I think, was restricted by the rating.
I agree.
I don't know if this was intentional or not, because like an F word was bleeped during the credits, which was weird. It was during the blooper section. I think if they just, because 80s horror movies were really exploitative, and there was a lot of, nudity and, swearing and all this stuff. And I think that if they were just allowed to let loose with the comedy and really let it flow more freely than it turned out to be, then I think it would have been way better. Absolutely.
But that being said, it was enjoyable, and there were definitely parts that were very funny.
No, yeah.
Exactly. Do you want to tell your favorite joke from the movie?
Oh, yeah, it was when Adam Devine's character is looking at, I think, a Playboy magazine, and he asks Alexander Ludwig's character, Chris, he's like, "Oh, what are you, gay?"
And he's like, he gets really offended. He's like, "Hey, come on, man." And Adam Devine says...
Yeah, Adam Devine is like, something to the effect of, "Oh, gay people, they're just out going to the disco and having sex, and... Oh, actually, it sounds like a pretty appealing lifestyle," and it was just really funny, and it kind of subverted the conversation and kind of put a twist on it, and it should have been more like that. There should have been more clever lines like that, and
I think for me the funniest part of the movie was the striptease at the end when the archetypal slutty ditzy girl Tina. She'd been, to avoid her death, she'd been tied up by the other characters in a boatload of clothes, like even oven a life jacket, oven mitts, and she was trying to, like, get at it, like, take them off, but they're always like, no, you're gonna die if you do that, but you just but at the end, to lure the slasher villain to them, to kill him, what better way to lure a slasher villain to you than boobs? Yeah. And...
also a striptease fueled by Adderall.
Yes. Yeah. She'd taken so much Adderall, which Nina Dobrev's character carried on her person for reasons. But, they played She's My Cherry Pie on a record player, and the actress who played Tina just had a ball.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think that was pretty much the high point of the movie. Again, there should have been more moments like that. More moments where it was more improv, more just letting the actors go freely because I think that was a scene where they're just like let loose.
Yeah.
And I think that if the actors were allowed to let loose a little bit more, this movie would have been funnier.
And that's what made the bloopers so funny. Like 90% of the bloopers was Adam Devine's improvisation.
Yeah. No,
and it was hysterical.
Yeah, it's a positive and also negative about the movie because I laughed a lot, but I laughed a lot during the credits.
Yeah.
And during the bloopers, which, bloopers are funny, but that shouldn't.
It shouldn't have been the high point of the comedy movie.
Speaking of the comedy of the movie being kind of limited, I think we should probably talk about the main struggle of the protagonist. Basically, the movie is pretty much the whole plot point of this group of kids going into a horror movie is pretty much a coping mechanism for the main
character.
Yeah,
Max,
the main character.
Who had lost her mother, who was a scream queen and stars in the movie Camp Bloodbath, which they get sucked into. So 3 years after her mother died, she sees the sort of ghost, if you will, of her mother's character in the film.
Yeah, played by Malin Ackerman.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that they maybe focused a little bit too much on that.
Yeah, there was a lot of room for comedy, but that room for comedy they moved over for the sort of poignant, touching scenes between the unknowing ghost of the mother and the all-knowing daughter.
Yeah, and I'm usually not one to be like, oh, please give me less character development.
Oh, absolutely.
But in this sense, it's supposed to be a really silly comedy that kind of takes horror movie tropes and makes fun of them, and I think that it was just a little bit too much, and I think that the ending got way too dark.
Yeah,
not the very ending of the movie, because the very ending of the movie is very funny. But when the mother and daughter are saying goodbye, and the mother knows that she has to sacrifice her life, it
could have been a 3-minute scene, 4-minute scene, but it ended up being like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it really was. It did go too dark, and like a movie like American Psycho, which is a dark comedy, pretty much all the way through, and then at the end there's a very kind of sobering moment where Patrick Bateman realizes he's not going to get better and that he's really screwed up his life and his psyche.
Yeah.
That's good, and that's a good way to end the movie. It's in a very sobering way.
Yes. Yes.
But this was just kind of it was too focused on, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, another thing, the movie itself, the set, the production value, all of it, was not very reminiscent of 80s horror. It was very cartoon or music video.
Yeah, I remember when we were watching the scene and they were out in the field looking for some car keys, and they were surrounded by these really bright pastel-colored flowers.
It was very stylized.
Yeah, no, I said out loud, it looks like Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
It looked like the chocolate room, where everything's made of candy and lollipops. Exactly. It really was too poppy, and I tried to justify it and saying oh, maybe they were making fun of how kind of crappy the old the 80s horror movies looked, and how kind of technically bland they were in terms of their color, but
it wasn't bland. It was very summery and natural in classic Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah, but color wise, not lighting, but just color wise, it was very muted.
Yeah, okay.
Well, not muted, but there wasn't much style.
It didn't pop.
Yeah, there wasn't much stylization in the cinematography and or the color timing. I mean, so. I was like, oh, maybe they're making fun of how kind of bland, quote unquote bland they looked. But then I was like,
it's a little too much of a stretch.
It's too much of a stretch. So
yeah, and even in the final showdown, the sky was scarlet red.
Yeah, with lightning bolts going across it, and there's slow-mo fight sequences, and it was, I don't know, there were parts of it that really worked.
Yes, absolutely. But it didn't quite fit what it was trying to parody.
Yeah, and some of the death scenes were actually pretty like when Alia Shawkat's character and Nina Dobrev's character are pinned under the bookcase, and they're both when Alia Shawkat's killed, and then Nina Dobrev knows she has to sacrifice her life. Like,
it was pretty dark.
Yeah, it was pretty dark, and like not like, oh, it's touching. Their friends are dying, but it's kind of like, ugh. Like it kind of
wow.
It was kind of like a sinking feeling, like ugh.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I really wish this movie could have been better.
I do too, but at the same time,
yeah,
it wasn't bad. No, if you get a chance to rent it from the library, Amazon, something,
yeah,
go for it. Absolutely.
Also, people should support movies like this.
Yes, absolutely.
Like creative ideas, because
it was a very cool concept.
How many movies do you see in wide release nowadays about people going into a movie or people going into another world that isn't some sort of franchise or world building, or not world building but franchise building, or sequel baiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think movies like this should be supported, and there's obviously a lot of love put into this movie. So
yes, absolutely.
But yeah, I rate movies out of 10. I give this movie a 5.5.
I'm going to have to give it a 6. The striptease for me gave it the extra 0.5.
No, that's fair. I mean, it was bordering on a 6, but I do think that there were too many missed opportunities for me to give it a 6.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on it.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
I'm Justin.
I'm Nick.
And this is Scream Reviews.